Good evening, everybody. I am Anuj Mehrotra. I am the Dean for the Georgia Tech Scheller College of Business, and I'm really delighted to see you all here and welcome to this episode of Tech Talks Business. I want to give a special thanks to Professor of Practice and alum Mike Messner and the advisory board member Matt Jordan for making this session possible. And it is my distinct pleasure, Steve, to welcome our guest, Steve Squeri, Chairman and CEO of American Express. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you. And congrats on your big win against Clemson.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Go Jackets. Go Jackets. I think he's trying to avoid my tough question by diverting the whole conversation to them.
Don't count on a 55-yard field goal every week.
So, Steve, you've been with American Express for some time. You started early in your career. It has been an iconic company for the U.S. So how does it feel to be able to get into these shoes as a CEO for such an iconic company? And does that really influence the legacy of the company? Does that influence your decision making?
Well, I've been there 40 years today, actually.
Oh, wow. Congratulations. Hi.
I thought this was a celebration party. That's how Matt got me to come. But no, I think, look, I started there 40 years ago. I started my career at Accenture 45 years ago. And I came to American Express because I was traveling a lot. And I just wanted to have a quick stopover until I figured out what I wanted to do. 40 years later, I have not figured out what I wanted to do yet. But a lot of people say, well, did you strive for this job? No, it's not in my wildest dreams, fantasies, or anything else. And I think that the way I still feel today is it's surreal, right? It's surreal because, I'm second. My father was the first one in his family born in this country from Italy. My grandfather came through Ellis Island just about 100 years ago. Mm-hmm. And my office looks right at Ellis Island. And to think that his grandson 100 years later would be running this iconic company, it's really hard to imagine, truly the American dream. But I still today feel that, at times it's not real, right? But it is real because I have to go and run this company. And I think there's a big weight on your shoulder when you run a company like this. We've been around, this year's our 175th year anniversary. I am the 11th CEO in the history of this company. You got a better chance to get hit by lightning, okay, than being the CEO of American Express. And so I think that puts a little bit of pressure on, right? You had Wells, you had Fargo, you had another Fargo, and so forth. You had Jim Robinson, Georgia Tech grad. Ken Chenault, Harvey Dollop. You had a lot of iconic people. And, for American Express, you want to live up to what this company has stood for forever, which is, service, trust, and security. And so when you're the CEO of this iconic company, you've got a long legacy to maintain, but you also have to make sure you innovate because this is a company that started as a freight forwarding company. We were Federal Express before Federal Express was Federal Express. And so I don't know how many people know that, but we started, just moving mail across the country, whether it be by train, by Pony Express, or what have you. And so how do you get from that to cards? You have to continue to innovate. And so the pressure's always on. And so the pressure that I feel is, how do I continue to make sure 175 years from now that this company is still around, because I'm a piece of that journey.
What a great perspective, Steve. So we talked about what has happened for 175 years, but in your shoes now, you're seeing a lot of changes, right? And how businesses are operating. There are trends, there are opportunities. So take us a little bit forward. What are you seeing in the payments industry as the biggest trends and opportunities? And will it be like a year from now when I use my American Express card? I just have to blink for payments. I don't have to sign anything or carry my card.
Well, you actually don't have to sign anything now. So if you're signing stuff, you just stop. I think the interesting thing about the payment space is that it's one of the fastest growing spaces in the world. The CAGR on a global basis is about 8% growth, and it's consistent, right? It's consistent. It had a step up during COVID, right? Because everything got electronified at that particular point in time, and then, it continued on. And there's a lot of innovation. You have a lot of fintechs in this space. And when you think about the payment space, I think people don't think about it. I eat and breathe and sleep this stuff. But there are so many components of the payment space that you can play, right? You can be a card issuer, okay? You don't even have to issue a card. You could be like a firm or Klarna or somebody and just buy now and maybe pay later.
Mm-hmm.
I call it buy now and maybe pay later because sometimes they don't.
You're not talking about me. I've been on time.
We've already checked your credit out. We're fine. So you have what I would call issuing, innovation. You have everybody that's issuing cards today. You have buy now, pay later at the point of sale. Everybody's probably seen that. You got Apple Pay, you got Google Pay, you got Amazon One Click, and so forth. And so there's a lot of innovation that goes on there. But then you have networks, and you just saw Capital One just acquired Discover, and so now they're in the network business, and there's really 4 networks, and there's 5 networks, 6 networks. You got CUP, you got JCB, American Express, Visa, MasterCard, and Discover. And so that's a part of where things are getting innovated as well, especially from a fraud perspective. I think AI is going to play a really big part from a network perspective. And then you have acquiring. And so, you look at a company like Stripe. Stripe was founded by John and Patrick Collison with basically 7 lines of code that they put in. And now they've built this thing up that they're one of the largest acquirers in the world, acquiring of transactions. They offer lots of other services. They offer a card to merchants and so forth. And so you're seeing this innovation that's happening from technology. And what you're seeing is people picking apart discrete parts of the payment ecosystem. The tough part for us is we play in all those parts. And so, we're an issuer. We issue small business cards, corporate cards. Obviously, we issue personal cards, green, gold, platinum, and Centurion. But we also issue a bunch of co-brand cards, Delta, which you all should have, in Atlanta, and whether it's Hilton, Marriott, and so forth. So, and then we have our network, and then we have acquiring activities as well. So, you're seeing lots of investment in this space, and you're seeing lots of innovation. And what you're seeing is a lot of the fintech companies not only just automating the payment piece of it, but automating the pieces that go around. You're going to continue to see this. And for us, we've got to be on our toes. And the next big trend is going to be agentic commerce, right? It's going to be agentic commerce. And so when you think about AI, you'll think about discovering. So you use, I want to buy a pair of sneakers. Okay, well, you put in the size, the color, and so forth, and it'll go out and search for you, show you the best deals, and bang, off it'll go. And eventually what will happen is it'll pick the best payment method based upon how many points you're going to get, or it'll pick the best payment method. For example, if you buy some electronics, it might say you can get more points with one company, but if you want to get an extended warranty, you should use this. And so I think, payments are going to continue to change. And I don't think anybody would have ever thought that somebody else would be making that recommendation for payments to them. And so it's important for us to make sure we have the right value propositions out there. We continue to update that so that our card gets selected. Now, it's not going to happen today, but it will happen during my tenure.
Yes, great. So, from what I understand, you pride yourselves as American Express to give a great consumer experience every time. But the consumer experiences at the high end of the market and at the low end of the market can be dramatically different. And there is, at least in my perception, a great sense of exclusivity involved with American Express, while the new generation is more about inclusivity and democratization. So is that going to dilute your brand, or how do you manage all these different segments?
Well, I think we don't like to think of American Express as an exclusive brand. We like to think of it as an aspirational brand. And I think even this this generation is aspirational. I want to achieve this, I want to achieve that, whatever it might be, my career, my personal life, financial, what have you, even philanthropic. We pivoted back in 2018 or so. We really pivoted. The mistake that we made with the younger generation was we believed what they wanted was just a card to do business and transact. And I have 4 girls, 34 to 20. And so on any given day, my mood could change. But what we realized, I watched my own kids, what they want is value. What they want is value, what they want is experiences, and they want access. And so the 2 cards for us that are the hottest cards for us right now are the gold card and the platinum card. Mm-hmm. And the platinum card, we're announcing a refresh on Thursday. I'm not going to talk to you about the refresh, but the reality is when you look at that platinum card, we were afraid that somebody who was 23, 24, 25 would not want to pay $495 at the time or $695. But when you start to look at the value that you get from that product, whether it's $240 in digital credits, $100 in Saks, Uber credits, a travel credit, early check-in at a hotel, late checkout, free breakfast, $100 credit at the hotel, and an upgrade, you could go away for 1 weekend and pay for the value of the card. And what we realized was the best consumers we had were younger people because they did that analysis and they did that math. And then we looked at the gold card, which has become the dining card between the Dunkin' Donuts, the 4X, the Resi credit, and so forth. And it's really worked out very well for us. So we pivoted our value proposition. So the reality is that we really wanted to focus because, when you look at, like myself, I'm a boomer. Well, as you get older, mm-hmm. Children leave the nest, hopefully, or at least fly some far away. And, you're not spending that kind of money and what have you, but they spend less. But when you think about a Gen Z, you think about a millennial, what we think about is lifetime value. And the mistake that we made for years is we felt that the brand was so aspirational. What we would do is get you when you were 40. Well, by 40, you've already established your habits, right? And so what we want to do is get you when you're young. Now, your wallet size may not be as big as a boomer or a Gen Xer at this point, but we get a higher share of your wallet and you grow with us as you go through, your career moves forward and so forth, and you stay with us longer. And so we've really focused on making sure that we don't disenfranchise our boomers and Xers, but we make sure that we do speak to millennials and Gen Z and whatever new thing will come up. They're here, they're just not credit worthy at this point. What is that group called? Yeah, them guys, right. Okay, right. So anyway.
I bet you have the names of the 2 people that gave you the advice, and their credit rating is really
it's not good at
this point. Yes, but let me ask you. You are expanding globally, and there are a lot more countries where your card is now accepted, and a lot more places, and so on and so forth. So give us some idea about how are you scaling that, and what kind of geopolitical risks that you take into account with them.
Yeah. So we have to, look, if you're traveling, we have to be where you're going to go is the best way to describe it. And so one of the bugaboos that we had against our product was coverage. It wasn't accepted everywhere. And if you look at the United States right now, I could pick out 100 merchants and it'll be accepted at 99. And the reality is that one that's not accepted, they still think we're charging 5 or 6%. And then we talk to them and say, look, we're the same price as Visa and MasterCard. And they're like, okay, I'll take your card. And so off it goes. Internationally, so in the U.S., and that's a real big deal with millennials and Gen Z, because when I first got my card, I had to ask the question, do you take Amex? Not in a hotel, not in a restaurant, not in an airline, but when I went to a small retailer, our new card members don't ask that question, right? It's not a question. It's not in their mindset. Internationally, a little bit different. Internationally, it's a little bit different. International is the fastest growing part of my business. It's the fastest growing part of our business. Our billings are growing at 13, 14%. And again, in an industry where you have 8% growth. So we're picking up market share, but we're very small. And so what's really important for us is to make sure that we can capture a large percentage of your wallet. Now, what does that mean? What that means is if you go to London and you go to Harrods, you're probably going to spend more in Harrods than you are at the bake shop down the block or the pub, depending on your drinking habits, okay? And so the reality is what we're trying to do is capture at least 90 to 95% of your wallet on a trip. Mm-hmm. And so to do that, we need about 80% what we call location-enforced coverage. And so what we did when I took over, we looked at all the cities around the world outside the United States where I'll give you, the numbers X, where we had X card members or X card members that visit. And the reality was, it became apparent it was only 50 or 60 cities that were really important for cardholders. And so we put a big press on those cities, working with partners to scale up coverage. We didn't not have coverage in any of the other places. We still continued those efforts, but we focused our investment so that it could continue to build and we get more and more share of that market. And that's worked out very well for us because, as I said, it's international is the fastest growing part of our business right now.
So it seems like you use a lot of data analytics. Now you're using a lot of AI in all these decision making. There are a couple of questions that actually were submitted, which I want to ask you from students. How do you balance the benefits of AI with the regulatory environment of a financial institution?
So we've been using AI, machine learning, and so forth since 2010. There isn't a credit decision, underwriting decision, or fraud decision today that is not AI-based, okay? We look at how do you then take unstructured data and bring that in to some of the decisioning as well. And at this point, from a credit and underwriting perspective, the amount of data and the amount of cycles and the expense, you're not getting that much better of a decision, right? And so we have the right structured data to make that decision. I think when you look at this in other ways, and I'll give you a couple of the ways that we're looking at it, we own Resi and TOC, Restaurant Reservation System, which if you would have said to somebody 15 years ago or 10 years ago that a credit card company would own a reservation system, you're like, what the hell? What is that? It doesn't make any sense. But here's the crazy part about it. What we need to do from a regulatory perspective, and this is where regulators need to sort of weigh in and get it right, is we need to run all of our models to regulatory compliance. Now, that's a bank rule that makes a lot of sense for credit, underwriting, and so forth. But if you want to know what's the best Italian restaurant, I'm not so sure that should be put through a regulatory model. Mm-hmm. Now, and I don't think there's any ethical decision with that, right? But so we're trying to adjust to all that, and I think the regulators are trying to adjust to that as well. In terms of the ethical nature of this, you have to keep a level playing field, and I think that's really important. And so you have to make sure that the data that you're using doesn't do that. And that's where sort of your chief data officer and compliance really come in. And it's a new skill, and it's a new thing that they have to really lean into, because you can it's pretty easy. I mean, you can have these models go so that you get the wrong ethical answer all the time. And that's not what we really want to do. And especially for us, because when you think about American Express, as I started off saying, we're all about trust, we're all about service, so we're about security. I read every email that I get from customers. Every single email I read and every single email I answer. I don't answer them with I can't solve the problems, but I'll say, look, I'll have somebody in my office look into this. But you learn so much. Mm-hmm. And the emails that I like getting, I've been a customer for 25 years, and today was the first time you've ever disappointed me. Well, it says, hey, look, we've done a really good job with you for 25 years. We did something wrong. Okay, because it can't be perfect. And then we can get to fix it, right?
Yeah.
And so the standard that, our cardholders hold us to is a standard much higher than you would hold your bank to. And, it's important then that they expect us to do things in an ethical way.
there are a lot of leadership lessons in what you just said. So let me talk about leadership a little bit. And you have stated your vision, and it's outlined, and there's a whole framework for winning. So give us a little bit about what constitutes that framework for giving, and we'll start taking some questions if you're okay from your audience.
Sure.
But I think there was a mic somewhere this side, so that we can be all okay. Camera itself. If you have a question, you might want to start lining up there, so I can start going to you in a couple of minutes.
So when I took over in 2017, at the end of 2017, as I said, I wasn't either the obvious choice from a media or investor perspective, and I may not have been the obvious choice internally. I wasn't the obvious choice to myself. So so that I needed to find a way to rally the team. And we had come off in 2009 or 10, the financial crisis. Then we had a big deal with Costco. We lost the Costco business, right? And so the company was focused on always climbing back, getting back to where we were. And I'm a very competitive guy. And that wasn't interesting. And so what I said to myself was, we need to focus in on winning. And it has to be winning across the whole thing. So we put the framework together, said, look, here's the vision, here's the mission, here are the priorities, here's how we're going to win. These are the leadership attributes that we're looking for, and here are our values. We always had blue box values, so here are the values. And it was one page. It took me 9 months to do that page. I was very fortunate. I knew I was going to take over 9 months before I did. I think they wanted a chance to change their minds, but I took over 9 months before. And then when I got that page, I sat with my new direct reports, and I wanted to change that from Steve's framework for winning to our framework for winning. Mm-hmm. And so I had them, I said, here's what I started. I just kind of sketched this out over the last month or so. Maybe I put my whole life into it, right? Could you guys, let's make it our own. I need your wisdom. And we modified a couple words here and there, but it basically stayed the same. And when I took over, the team was all about themselves. It wasn't about the team. Mm-hmm. And we had sort of set up a culture where the individual trumped the company, which you're not going to win that way. You're really not going to win. And so it just happened over time. And so what I did was I assembled a team that I felt was going to inconvenience themselves to convenience the organization. Because leadership starts with an L, because it's all about leveraging. You got to leverage the organization, right? And you leverage that organization by making sure that the organization knows that you care about them more than you care about yourself. And that was very important. And so there's a couple things that I did, and then we'll get to the questions. Because this set in motion our growth over the last few years. What I did was, we used to have these business unit ratings. So every business unit got a rating, the company got a rating, and the individual got a rating. Mm-hmm. So I said, we're eliminating business unit ratings, we're eliminating individual ratings. We're all going to hold hands, and whatever the company gets, that's the rating we're going to have. That's what we're going to have. That is going to be our rating, and we're going to own that. And we're going to make investment decisions as a team. So what happened? When we're sitting down to make investment decisions, we were fortunate that year because we had a lot of extra, we had a good year, we had extra money to go through. The way it used to be done was, if I gave Joe $50 million to invest, then Sally had to have $50 million to invest. Well, we didn't do it that way. We sat down as a team. And at the end of the year, one of my direct reports came to me and said, we had an extra $700 million to invest this year. And my business unit only got $10 million. I'm like, oh, shit, here we go. And he said, you know what? It was absolutely the right thing. And I was involved in every single one of those decisions. It takes more than one person. It takes a team to win. But the team did that, right? The team did that because they were focused on winning as a team, not focused on winning as an individual. And, once you start having success with that, it just keeps rolling. right? It just keeps rolling. And then you have to hire individuals that want to put themselves behind a team.
Wonderful. Great. So let's take some questions. I think I have too many, but I'm not going to get into mine. Let's take.
Good evening, Robert Ed. I'm a graduate student. I'm also a retired contract officer. I have a question. Your relationship with the Women-Owned Business, Small Business Center, and SBA, which I was a part of for several years, you offer small business counseling in partnership agreements to help leverage small businesses with payment options and so forth. What do you see the emergence of stable value bonds to impact the growth of these small businesses? This may be controversial, but I don't see any impact. Here's how I think about stable coins. And I went on record about this about 5 years ago when crypto was all the rage. I think you have to look at this thing. You got to look at digital currencies. There's 3 types of digital currencies, right? You've got your Ethereum, your XRP, your Bitcoin. This will never be used for payments unless you're paying rates. So this will never be used for payments. Because why? There's not enough of it. It's bounded, right? That's why it's so much value, because it's bounded. It fluctuates every 20 seconds. And the reality is it doesn't process very quickly. So let's not use that as a payment. Let's think about that as digital gold, right? Then at the other end of the spectrum, you've got government currency, digital currency, which really has not taken off. China has it, and the China digital currency is used in Vietnam. It's used in Thailand and other countries in the Far East. Germany's supposed to launch one in 2031, and our government is not even around to do it. And then you have stable coins. The first stable coin was launched by Facebook with Diem probably 5 or 6 years ago. But the thing with stable coins is that you want somebody who is really trustworthy. In that particular point in time, Facebook was really not all that trustworthy. So when you look at stable coins now, issued by JP Morgan, PayPal, so forth and so on, I think you're going to find out where that's going to be very useful is in cross-border settlements. And I think instead of thinking about that from a payments perspective, think about it from a settlement perspective. So here's the use case for stable coins. I have a supplier that I do a lot of business with. And I'm in Mexico, my supplier's in Japan. I got to convert that to U.S. currency. Then we convert that to yen. Then we convert back. And basically the correspondent banks and the money center bank is making a lot of money on a currency exchange. Well, if I know that I'm going to continue to do business with somebody, I keep a stable coin. I keep a working capital stable coin account. I go back and forth in U.S. dollar, whatever it might be, and I never have to deal with the currency exchange. And so I think what you're going to see is this is going to be a big issue for some of the money center banks and the correspondent banks. And I think this will be an option for small businesses and middle market companies, as well as the Walmarts of the world that do a lot cross-border with the same entity. But as far as it displacing credit cards or displacing loans or causing some sort of financial distress to small businesses, I don't think so. I think the threat here is to banks from an FX perspective, right? One person's perspective.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. First of all, I would like to say thank you. I have been American Express customers for 20 plus years.
Oh, very good. Thank you. No, I should be.
Yeah, I know your customer. Yeah. And my follow-up question would be related to machine learning and AI. So can you comment about the adoption in the American Express, and also given the widely use of the AI, especially the agent systems, what would be your company's way to govern the AI use?
Yeah, so look, we've been playing around with, we've been using AI, as I said, for a long, long time, but I think when people talk about AI now, it's all about agentic, right? It's agentic AI. And, you know, we've probably run about 30, 40 pilots. And I would argue that only a handful have been successful. And so I think, and I've talked to a lot of CEOs about this, you know, how you want to deploy this. And what we all came to the conclusion is it needs to be driven top down. it needs to become what's important to the CEO will become important to the company. Because otherwise, everybody wants to play in AI. And you can see a lot of cycles being burned, a lot of waste and so forth. And, the big play usually is efficiency. Everybody looks at efficiency. But I haven't seen a lot of efficiency, especially when you start to look at, we want to put it in our HR department, want to put it, you'll save a few, $5 million, $6 million. But the big thing is, how do you use AI and what I've challenged my team is, how do we use this to drive revenue? And how do we use this to drive process change? And so that's what we're looking at. And so you think about customer service and you use agents, same thing with travel. So I'll give you one of the travel examples. We have so much data about people. If you call up and say, look, I want to go to Italy, we should be able to look at your spending, look at you, look at card members that look exactly like you, and come up with 3 itineraries for you that you can now play with. Right? Anybody that's written a presentation, we're not there yet. We're going to get there. Don't worry. You go next year. Don't go next. Go next September. But if you think about writing a presentation or trying to write a letter, it's so much easier to work off a draft than it is to start from scratch. So what's the hardest thing about writing a letter or writing a memo or doing a slideshow? It's, where do I start? Well, AI can do all that for us. And if you think about it, then I have travel counselors who are not spending all that time doing that kind of stuff, but now what they're doing is modifying, linking, labeling, and doing that. I think that's going to be a big change for us because we're one of the largest consumer travel agencies in the world. We'll do that. You can also do that through chat from a customer service perspective. So, and the same thing with Resi, our restaurant reservation system. I think those are going to be big things for us that'll unlock efficiencies, but it'll also bring people to us to want to book their trips.
Right. Hi, Steve. My name is Jun Choi. I'm a first-year MD student at Georgia Tech Scheller College of Business. It's not every day I get to be in the presence of Amex CEO in this beautiful university called New York, so thanks for your time. Appreciate you doing this. I'd also like to thank Dina Nuge, Mac Jordan, Michael Messner for making this happen. Thank you all.
We're going to give you the Emmy.
Here's my question. I know we got a long lineup here. So my question is, so when it comes to growth through generation, Gen Z, millennials, I know you mentioned the importance of driving value, also innovating successful product really with a long proven track record. And I know you said 60 years in your past. And my question is, what is your methodology when it comes to staying in tune, keeping up with the trends, given the gap in generation from you? I know you mentioned you have children who are between 34 and 20, some personal experience there, but is it also a team of data analytics at Amex that you really rely on? And are there any surprising insights or trends that you are noticing, particularly with this Gen Z millennials, that deviates from what's worked in the past, such as the traditional travel perks and services?
Yeah, so I think that, look, I think listening to customers, and that's why I read all these emails I get. And, somebody says, well, how do I reach you? Just go on the internet. Everybody else does. But I think listening to customers is important, and interacting with people in the company who are of all different ages and have all different experiences. You'd be amazed at how many ideas you walk around our service center, people will tell you so much because they're dealing with customers all day. You talk to our salespeople, they'll tell you so much because they're dealing with customers all day. And then you have to figure out the people in the organization that really know what's going on. But I have to tell you, my kids are a great example of, my kids and their friends are a great example. That got us all onto this whole, how do we penetrate the millennials and Gen Z? It's not a lot of analytics. We're not seeing a lot of trend differences. I think that, when you think about the benefits that we've had, if you look at the Platinum Card, millennials and Gen Zs are eating up the same benefits that the boomers did and so forth, right? Now, you might have some more lifestyle benefits. They might be going to different concerts and things like that. But the concept really does work. And I think if you watch the sort of evolution of our products, I always talk to people about expanding the organic core of our product, and what I mean by that is you got to keep building on the core. You can't go out here and then try and connect it or have the customer say, oh, that makes sense, right? And so I think we've done a good job of listening to the customer. And if you look at it, just look at the Platinum Card, with the Equinox benefit that we put on, digital streaming benefits that we put on, ride sharing that we put on, the card was purely hotel and travel, a hotel and airline. And it just continues to expand and will continue to expand in this new release that we have.
Great. Hi, Steven. Whiteshaw here, also an MBA student like June before me. Thanks for being here. Dean Anush, Banjolo, thank you very much for making it happen. Mustafa and Mike Mesnay, thank you for specifically us MBA students being able to come here. How do you decide where do you expand and which countries do you expand further, especially since international is such a big part of your growth?
Yeah, the reality is we look at revenue pools. And you look at revenue pools and, when you look at the revenue pool in continental Europe, for example, the United States dwarfs it, right? I mean, you can put all those countries together and it just dwarfs it. And it's because of, different ways people use products. Like you go to Germany, nobody borrows, right? There's not a lending business in Germany. It's not what people do. You go to Japan, it's not a big lending market. You go to the United States, you'll see lending, you'll see spending, you'll see all those things. But we look at the revenue pool and we look at how we're going to penetrate. Having said that, I have to be in every single country, and we're in the other countries through partnerships. And the reason the partnerships work is because, like you take Brazil, we're in partnership with Bradesco. Well, Bradesco has like 4,000 branches. They reach all parts of it, and it's a part of their package that they offer to their customers. And so we really just look at the revenue pools and go from there, and that's how we decide.
Hi, Steven. Just quickly thank you again. I'm not going to thank everyone.
Okay.
I'm a current student in Georgia Tech's Master's in Quantitative and Computational Finance. While I know that perks are a great draw, both for people in my generation as well as, the reason that my parents had started 20 plus years ago, the reason that they stay with them and that in the future, I hope that, and you probably hope that many people will stay with American Express, is the relationships. And while investment in people creating AI is very important, I was curious on your thoughts in investing in people that maybe you can chat with for creating travel plans, or when you have an issue with your card, that make those real relationships that keep people sticky to the company and the best experiences.
Yeah, no, I think you're never going to have at this company that I could ever see where you won't have somebody you can't call and talk to on the phone. Our customers, what's really important is you want to deal with your customer the way they want to be dealt with, not the way you want to deal, which means there are some customers that want to deal with you through a mobile app and that's it. There's others that want to deal with chat. There's others that want to call you. So how do you invest in the people that are on the other end of that line? Well, you give them AI tools so that they're not sitting there looking up restaurants and looking up hotels, and that they can really further that relationship by providing them more information. It's interesting to provide people data. It's a lot better to provide them information when you can take all that data and provide workable travel itineraries or workable solutions, whether that be what card product to pick or what have you. So we're going to continue to invest in our people, because people ask me, what do you think sets American Express apart? Is it the brand? Is it the service? No, it's the people that work at the company. That's the difference. The people that work at our company care about our customers, and they care about each other. And that's really, really important. If you've been, and I'm not going to knock any bank, but if you've been in another financial institution and you came to American Express, you're going to wonder why you were at that other financial institution. And that's not because of me. That's how this company has been, because we've always cared about our people, and our people always care about customers. Great.
So, hi, Steve. Crazy segue. I just started as an analyst in consumer banking last week. My name is Parth Gandhi. I'm a recent graduate of Georgia Tech this past May. My question is, in a world that's becoming so much more digital, a lot more tangible things are being replaced by digital things. How do you imagine American Express's brand evolving, especially when so much of it is based around the metal card, the platinum invitation package, the tangible benefits?
Yeah, I mean, look, I got asked a question 15 years ago when the card goes away. Card's not going away. I mean, I can't tell you, when we launched the Delta co-brand card on an old Delta plane that we chopped up, right? Who wants that? Everybody. The black card with the design on it, the platinum card, the rose gold card, the white gold card. People go nuts over cards. Great, terrific. 70% of our transactions do not involve a card, right? And so I think people like things that they can touch and feel. And again, what we're going to do in a digital world, in an analog world, is give people what they want. We're going to give people what they want. We're going to make it easy for them to consume it. And we're going to continue to come out with new card designs. And they may only use it for 3 out of 10 transactions, but you know what? They want it. And they call in. I can't tell you how many people say, I lost my Delta, 747 card. Can I get another one? No, because Ed's not going to cut up another 747. So, unless you want to pay for it. So that's how we think about it.
By the way, Ed's team did send regards to you, but I don't know how many people were standing in line.
We'll take everybody that's in line.
All right, no more line after that then. Okay.
You're in charge.
Yeah.
Now I'm expanding your responsibilities from microphone to line monitor.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Tara Bartholodge. I know you talked a little bit today about American Express's positioning in the competitive landscape in relation to fintechs and digital platforms like Stripe, Apple Pay, and Square. I was wondering if you could discuss a little bit about American Express's opportunities for growth in relation to user engagement and customer volume.
Yeah, I mean, as far as customer volume, it's all about getting new customers, right? And user engagement, it's about getting a higher share of wallet. And what you need to do is to continue to, come up with value propositions that are going to do that. And so we do a lot of analytical marketing. So for example, if you're a small business and we look at your small business and say, geez, why aren't you using our card to buy X, Y, and Z? Because we know a small business like you is using X, Y, and Z. We'll target you with offers to do that, okay? If you're a small business, you're not using our card for travel for whatever reason, we'll do that. We'll do the same thing with consumers. What we'll try and do is do, like for like with customers and look at spending, because that's how we do our card marketing. When you think about, sort of the fintechs like, Square and PayPal and Stripe, they're not competitors of ours. These are people that are helping us grow because we have partnerships with all of them to sign merchants. PayPal, Stripe, and Square are some of our largest merchant acquirers in the world. So I don't look at them as competitors for us. I look at them as helping us grow. And what's important for us is engaging with them to engage their merchants to accept the card. So that's one way that we get more volume of people's wallet, because that's why having 100% parity in the United States was so important, because we want to get more of somebody's share of wallet. And the more wallet share you get, the more lends you get, the more loyalty you get, and so forth. And that's why our customer marketing team will spend probably $2.5 billion this year on customer marketing, not prospect marketing, just to get people to spend more money. So that's how you get more volume, and that's how you get more engagement. The other thing that we do is work a lot with our partners to access our card base, because our card base is more affluent. It's one of the reasons that we went and got Resi and we got Tock. Before we had Resi and Tock, restaurant was not our largest T&E category. It was airlines, hotel. Our largest T&E category right now is restaurants, because what we've done is created a closed-loop system of restaurants and cardholders to interact. But we've left it open on the cardholder side, so we've used Resi and Tock to actually acquire new cardholders because they see special offers and benefits that cardholders are getting. So that's how we're trying to drive some of the engagement.
Thank you.
You had the mic too high, Fab. Perfect height for you.
I think he adjusted preemptively for me, so thank you. Thank you for being here. My question is, you've been with American Express for 40 years. I imagine you've done a lot of different jobs during that time. How did you think about the different career decisions that you've made, the different opportunities?
And then what are the daily, monthly, annual habits, rhythms that have enabled you to stay so engaged and sharp and big to sharpen the soul?
So let me start with the last part of the habits, monthly, whatever it is. I think that for me, there's three things that I've always tried to do. I've always tried to be an agile learner. And I think that's what keeps us all sharp, right? I mean, so I learn now every day. You're learning something new all the time. And I think you have to be open to learning stuff. You get this seat and you just don't close yourself off to learning at that point. You have to, I would argue, you have to learn more. I would also argue I've grown more in my business career in the last 8 years than I did in the first 32 years since I've been CEO. The second thing, work harder than everybody else. I'm all in. And I've been that way my entire career, all in. Because I've always wanted to make sure that I gave my best and would do the best. The third thing was, for me, I always wanted to make the people around me better. I felt if I did that, we would all succeed. And those are the three things that I follow today. I mean, my job is to make my team better, to make the company better. It's pretty easy when you're on the top, right? As far as my career path, it's not a usual career path. I came to American Express 40 years ago in an analyst position. I worked in the Travelers Check Group. How many people know what the Travelers Check is? Yeah, some of you. Okay. Look it up on the internet. As Perplexity. But it's when you look at your career, I always look for jobs where I could make a difference, where I could learn, and I really loved jobs where I was one of one, so that I could stand out. And I'll give you just a couple of examples. When I was, it's a long time ago now, it makes me feel old, but 28 years ago, Y2K, everybody know what Y2K was? I read in the history book. Okay. Harvey Golub was the CEO, and he was looking, we had a meeting, every business unit had to send somebody to that meeting, and I was the senior vice president, which is the top 170 position in the company. It's a good position, but I was in there with presidents, EVPs, all the muckety-mutts, and Harvey said, I need somebody to lead Y2K for the company in addition to their own job. I raised my hand. And I heard the murmurs, what an idiot. I'm volunteering for this. And somebody said to me, if you screw this up, your career's over. So I got news for you. If I screw this up, everybody's career's over. Okay? So I just felt that I could make a difference. And what happened was, I met with Harvey once a month. I wound up meeting with the American Express board of directors, like once or twice a year for 3 years. I mean, I got to sit next to Gerald Ford and Henry Kissinger, which is like, what is this kid from Astoria, Queens, sitting between Henry Kissinger and Gerald Ford, right? And when it was all over, we didn't collapse. It worked, and I wound up getting another job. And the other thing that I did was I became CIO of the company, not chief investment officer, but chief information officer. I think that's where Mac and I ran into each other in 2005. And I volunteered for that job. And everybody made fun of that because, like, you're taking yourself out of the running. I'm not in a running. I just want to work and get shit done. That's all I want to do. And I thought it would be an interesting job. I get to work for Ken Chenault, which I did for 14 years. I learned a lot. And so my career has been really I didn't run the consumer card business. We're a consumer card business company. But the reality is I ran technology, small business, corporate card, merchant, travel, credit, operations, strategy, M&A. So it kind of worked, And I always looked at how do I build a skill set? And I always looked at how I could develop more, how I could add more value to the company, and I could add more value to myself because you have to invest in yourself as well. And it just so happened when all was said and done, the reality was there was nobody else around to take this job. I got it, And all of those skills that I had acquired over all those years really helped out. So far so good. But as my brothers tell me, if I was you, I'd quit now. You're not that good.
Well, this is amazing. Thank you very much, Jake. What a lovely conversation with you, and so many lessons there in your thank you for being candid, and thank you for all the lessons that are there. I would also want to thank you all for joining us today here, and I want to say that on October 8th, our next guest on Tech Talks Business will be Tim Green, Chairman, President, and CEO of Georgia Power. I hope to see you there then. Thank you very much again.